Another day, another recap. Today, we're diving into the brand new action thriller crime movie titled The Killer. Enjoy the recap. The movie kicks off in Chapter 1, set in Paris. We meet an assassin, simply known as The Killer, sitting by a window, lost in thought. His timer goes off, almost lulling him to sleep. He wakes up a bit later, still staring out the window with his gloves on. Without a name, he's known just as The Killer. He sits back, puts on some earphones, and watches people go about their daily lives. It's time for some yoga, push-ups, and maintaining that perfect sitting posture. Eventually, he leaves the room, heads down a few flights of stairs, and exits the building with shades and a hat. He scans a bike with his phone, grabs some supplies from a nearby cafe, and takes a call. The person on the other end says someone will show up. The killer mentions he's waited 5 days and will only wait 2 more. He heads back to his spot, and a narrator chimes in. The killer decides not to book any more Airbnb stays due to hidden nanny cams. As night falls, he sets up his sniper rifle, ready at the window. Suddenly, someone opens the door behind him. The killer grabs his rifle, but it's just a man dropping off mail. A close call. When dawn breaks, he's still at the window. He reflects on how boredom is one of the toughest challenges, making his job dull until he has to stage accidents or use poisons, sparking his creativity. He continues his routine by disinfecting the sink and then heads to his makeshift bed. The killer decides to take a power nap, setting his alarm to wake up periodically and check if his target has arrived. During one of these checks, he notices the curtains being opened at his target's location. A car pulls up and a housemaid begins preparing for an important guest. The killer sets up his sniper rifle again and spots a man inside the house. He loads his bullets, adjusts his position to window level, and sees more people entering the building. The maid greets the guests, and the killer puts on his earphones, noticing a woman being guided to a room. He throws on his hoodie, muttering, "I don't give up." Watching through his scope, his watch alerts him to his heart rate. He spots his target coming into view through the window. He gives himself a pep talk about morals, which surprisingly calms his heart rate. The target's wife is also in the room. When the killer fires, he misses his target. The guards close the blinds and the killer has to quickly pack up his weapons. He grabs a motorcycle helmet and runs to his scooter, speeding away as the cops close in. As he drives, he dumps his gun into a passing garbage truck. He continues to evade the police, pulling off a Jason Bourne-like maneuver on some stairs and darting through alleys. He stops his bike at the bottom of some stairs, climbs them, and heads to a grimy public toilet at a gas station. After a quick makeover, he hails a cab to the airport. While in line, he spots a Belgian Malinois and quickly changes direction. He cleans up, buys a plane ticket, and makes a phone call from a booth, explaining what happened. On the plane, he notices a suspicious-looking man. Later, he arrives at his destination and keeps an eye on the same man. Over the speakers, there's an announcement about a delayed flight option with a voucher and accommodation for a day. He accepts the trade and successfully makes his way to his hotel room, placing a glass cup on the door handle and sitting on the couch. The following day, he silently exits the hotel and heads to his next flight. With earphones in, he cruises through the sky. At his new destination, he jumps into his car, driving through beautiful scenery until he reaches a gate. Spotting boot marks on the ground, he grabs a pistol and jumps the gate, sprinting until he finds more tracks leading to a mansion. Inside, he sees blood everywhere and immediately makes a call, rushing to a hospital experiencing power outages. There, he finds a woman in critical condition. Marcus tells the killer that his sister, Magdala, described the attackers as a woman and a man. Despite being attacked, she managed to stab the man and hide in a bathroom. Marcus believes the attackers were after the killer but found his wife instead. The killer sits next to Magdala, who wakes up and assures him she didn't reveal anything about him, even under immense pressure. With that, he leaves the hospital and starts investigating. He opens a hidden underground safe and begins packing his bags the next day. Driving through town, he spots the vehicle described leaving his house. As night falls, he requests an emergency driver. When the door opens, he searches through their database until he finds the driver he's looking for. He sends a package to Dolores and begins staking out a location. He spots the driver he's been seeking and tails him, eventually asking for a ride. During the ride, the killer taps his pistol on the glass. The driver hands over his wallet, but the killer doesn't want money. He wants information. The driver, clearly scared, describes the two people as freaks and explains he was forced to drive them. The driver recounts how he took the pair to a hidden mansion and was forced to wait until they returned. The killer, uninterested in the story, kills the driver. Using another fake passport, he leaves the country and heads to New Orleans. There, he stops at a storage facility to park his van, grabs some guns, files, and a new license plate. Equipped with power tools and even a banana, he prepares for his next move. The killer spots a specific woman and calls her Dolores. It's time to execute his plan. Disguised as a garbage man, he enters a building and counts how long it takes for the door to close. He drinks from a water fountain and keeps the glass door open when the opportunity arises. When the woman sees him, she's petrified. The killer holds her and then confronts Hodges at gunpoint. Hodges recognizes the killer and his line of work, telling Dolores to comply with his demands. After locking her in the bathroom, Hodges admits he was forced to take action when the killer missed the shot against a powerful man. Hodges, seemingly one of the killer's former leaders, offers a solution: disappear. He shares a backstory of building everything from the ground up, but the killer demands to know where the backups are. Hodges claims there's nothing and asserts the killer won't harm him. However, he's mistaken. The killer shoots him in the chest with a nail gun, giving him 6 minutes to save himself, but Hodges dies on the spot. The killer heads to Dolores but discovers she knows the names he's looking for. She promises to provide them if he ensures things are left in order. Despite a voice in his head telling him empathy is weakness, he cuts her free. She sees Hodges and faints. The killer dumps Hodges' body into a garbage can. Later that night, Dolores is taken for a drive. When they stop and the killer exits the van, she screams and tries to escape, but it's futile. She eventually helps him go through all the files to find the subcontractors who broke into his house, but he only finds a name: Claiborne. Once finished, he coldly kills Dolores, complaining about always having to clean up. He is a true psychopath. He heads to a motel to catch some sleep after cleaning his van and grabbing a bite. There's not much else to do but head to Florida. He arrives at the address provided earlier and spots some men at the location. As night falls, the killer sees the men leaving and decides to follow them. One of the men heads back to his house. The killer approaches the fence and sees a massive dog barking at him. He tosses the dog some food, which it eats before running back to its owner. He waits patiently, then enters the property when the dog isn't around. Stealthily, he finds the dog napping and sneaks into the house through the front door. Inside, he hears the man in the shower. As the man finishes, the killer gives himself another pep talk but is unexpectedly confronted. The man quickly shows his toughness, pinning the killer to the ground. The fight is intense, with both men breaking everything around the house. The killer uses multiple items to bash the man's face, eventually putting him in a chokehold, but the man escapes, and the fight continues. The man reaches for a gun but is injured in the process. The killer arms himself with whatever he can find and hides behind a door. As the bleeding man approaches, the killer finds a pistol, injures him, and then finishes him off. He sprints for his life when the dog chases him, and once safe, he throws a Molotov cocktail to burn the house and cover his tracks. The next day, he heads to the airport and travels to New York City. Using public transport, he rents a car and arrives at the subcontractor's supposed house, watching it like he watched the others. He takes a much-needed rest and waits until nighttime, when he spots a woman matching the description the taxi driver gave him earlier. As soon as she starts driving, the killer quickly follows, keeping a safe distance. The radio plays as he tracks her. She turns right, and he jumps into the left lane, ready to finish the job, but stops when he hears sirens in the distance. He continues following her car until it stops. She's made her way to the waterfront for a fancy meal. Talking to himself again, the killer forcefully takes a seat at her table, aiming his gun at her. She buckles under pressure, introducing herself as the expert. She asks if he gave Hodges a horrific death. The killer remains silent as the expert tries friendly tactics, offering him food and claiming she had nothing to do with hurting his wife. It was the brute. The killer had already taken care of him. She rambles about morality and the hypocrisy of their work, pointing out that he could have killed her in many ways but chose to talk instead. He takes her outside and makes her walk while she continues to blabber and even fakes breaking her leg. Unfazed, the killer shoots her clean in the head. His hunt isn't over yet. With a high-profile target, this job won't be easy. He stakes out the man's residence and heads up the car park when he sees an opportunity. Running into a door handle that won't open, the killer simply searches for a fob copier on Amazon and spots his target. Sitting in the car at night, he links up with a man selling weapons, everything a psycho could wish for. After receiving his Amazon delivery, the killer heads to the gym where his target trains. Swiping the janitor's card, he enters the change rooms and finds his target heading off to work out. Using the janitor's card, the killer opens the target's locker, takes a card from the wallet inside, and copies it with the device he bought earlier. He then returns the card to the wallet. He waits until the gate opens for the building's car park, using the copied card to open the door. Taking the nearby elevator, the killer goes up to level 27 and walks right into the billionaire's abode. The man is choosing between bottles when he spots the killer and gets scared. Claiborne, the billionaire, has no idea who the killer is and offers money. When the gun is pointed at him, he almost begs, confused, until the killer shows him the copied card. Claiborne quickly realizes what's going on. He explains that after the killer missed the shot, Hodges recommended that insurance be taken out and the killer be removed. Claiborne uses his billionaire's charm to assure the killer that he has no issue with him. The killer warns that if he has to come back, it will be a slow and painful death. He then walks out of the room and onto the street. In his final destination, he heads to the Dominican Republic, where he enjoys a nice cup of tea with his now healed wife. And that's the end. If you have any recommendations or videos you'd like recapped, smash them down in the comments below. As always, see you on the next one.